This podcast is sponsored by nobody.
Hey dudes, this is Judy Matheson, Amanda in Lust for a Vampire, and you're listening to Tommy Throwback Kovac on Splat from the Past. How is my American accent, Tommy?
Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things could get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming a very talented writer and actor. I am talking about Joshua Sinclair, who played John in the Mel Wells Italian horror cult classic Lady Frankenstein, which continues to play on creature feature programs to this day. Classic horror movie. It celebrates its 50th anniversary. I'm going to talk to him about that. Talk to him about... he also wrote the classic miniseries Shaka Zulu. And he also wrote Judgement in Berlin. And he also worked with David Bowie in a movie called Just a Gigolo. And it's going to be great talking to him today. He's, written screenplays, he's written books, and he's acted. And that's quite a career arc. I talked to a lot of people who have done all of that stuff, though, but it's still quite an arc, especially since he started so young in the business, And it's going to be a great conversation. Ask him about, working with the original Mr. Mushnick from Little Shop of Horrors. So, here is my interview with Joshua Sinclair.
Hello.
Hey, Joshua. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you today?
Good, more or less. How are you?
Same. This is such a great honor. Thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, it's usually I never give him interviews like this without it being cleared and everything else. It's just very rare that I do this.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you, sir. So, going back in time, you've worn many hats in the entertainment industry. You've been an actor, producer, writer, director. At what age did you start gravitating towards the arts?
Well, as a writer, I started when I was about 10. Everybody in my family is a writer. And my grandfather was a very important writer, and my great-grandfather. So I've always been a writer, and I started writing when I was a kid in New York at home, just for fun. And the first things I did as a screenwriter probably were in when I was 15, 16. When I was in the Garden of Finzi Contini, I wrote part of my own dialogue there as an actor. And then I went on to do other things, and from there I got the reputation that I could write, but I never wanted to really be in the film industry because I was studying medicine. But it was, it was a bunch of things that came together in Rome and in New York and everywhere.
So it was born into the trade that you would become a writer eventually.
Yeah, that's what I really like. That's what I did today, and that's what I've been doing as much as I could. For many years, I love to write. If you wake up every day and you'd want to write, that means you're a writer. Basically, I believe that people should be doing professionally what they feel they must do every single day when they wake up, no matter what it is. But it's something that is in you and you need to exercise it.
That's a good way to look at it. Did your parents take you to the movies and theater growing up?
I was in Dobbs Ferry, New York, so we had one movie theater in Dobbs Ferry. We used to go down to the city. I went to the theater with my parents, and I saw a few plays as a child. But some movies, but most of the movies I saw were a $1 Million Movie on television at night. I used to go down at night when I was a kid, and we had a TV in the cellar. And my father used to be in the other room typing because he was writing for the New York Times and for other newspapers in New York. And I used to watch $1 Million Movie and other movies until about 2 or 3 in the morning.
Nice.
And I saw the oldies.
Yeah. Did you see the Frankenstein movies?
Uh, I like the Frankenstein movies. You said you like Lady Frankenstein. I have to tell you honestly,
Hmm.
that's the one movie. That's one thing I did in my life that I really don't even remember and don't really look forward to seeing again. It was not. It was interesting to work with Joseph Cotton,
Hmm.
and above all, Mickey Haggerty, who I became friends with at the time because he was, of course, Mr. Universe or Mr. America, whatever Mickey was. And I liked to lift weights then. I was 15,
Hmm.
but and some of the actors were interesting there. Friends of mine who I knew from Italy, but I didn't particularly understand the film or like it that much. I didn't think it was that interesting to show Frankenstein like that because the idea of the modern Prometheus or the idea of Frankenstein was a little more sophisticated than that, like Dracula.
Right.
And I liked Mel Brooks' Frankenstein, and I liked some of them,
Right.
but then they were clearly and elegantly send up on this topic. But the Frankenstein there was a little Italian B movie, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, Andy Warhol, did his own version of Frankenstein, and of course, the Hammer people were doing it in England with Christopher Lee a lot in those days. Everyone was doing Frankenstein because it was in the public domain that anyone can do a version of it.
Yeah, it's also the idea of Frankenstein and the golem are also very very much a part of our subculture and the collective unconscious of our civilization. I was in Rome actually when Warhol was there with Morrissey, and they were going to do. I think they had just done Dracula, I think, or Frankenstein. I
Hmm.
don't remember, but I didn't. I mean, it was pop culture, and I never understood pop culture that much because I grew up with sort of a more classic thing with my parents and with the people I was working with. And when you start working with people like Rossellini and De Sica and Joe Lozzi,
Hmm.
the pop culture of Warhol isn't really that attractive anymore.
Yeah. So, was Lady Frankenstein just a standard audition for you?
Um, I didn't audition for it. Um, my great aunt did the costumes for Lady Frankenstein, and she asked me if I wanted to make some extra money, and I found myself in the movie.
Oh wow.
Uh, it wasn't. I did the same with Garden of Vinci Contini. I didn't audition for these things. I just found myself in them because I knew the people involved or something or other.
Hmm.
It was, yeah,
Yeah. Were you aware that the director Mel Wells was Mr. Mushnick in Little Shop of Horrors?
yeah. He was a good. I liked him. No. Uh, He was interesting. We had some nice conversations, and he played psychiatrist with me because he said that I shouldn't sit in the corner, that I should socialize more, and he was nice. He's like a grandfather to me when I was doing this movie, and he was a good director, and he worked very well with Joe Cotton and others, and I was amazed by how professional he was with everybody. And I was amazed that was the kind of movie he was actually making in the end, because I thought it would be something more on the line of Coppola's Dracula,
Yeah.
But it was a different time. It was Rome in a period in which everything was a little kitsch.
Yeah. What was Joseph Cotton like?
Joseph Cotton was very reserved. He was basically close to everyone. He didn't play the star, even though he was the star. And I sort of knew who he was and what he had done. I wasn't terribly impressed by anything in those days. I'm not today either.
Hmm.
But I liked him in The Third Man. I liked what he did generally as an actor. I think he was wonderful. And of course, he was one of the best of his period. And working with him was easy. He just did what he had to do, listen to the director. I don't know really whether he took the film that seriously, because he wasn't as concentrated, let's say, as, for instance, when I worked with Richard Burton at the same period, more or less,
Right.
on the assassination of Trotsky with Joe Losey. Burton was always incredibly focused and concentrated in everything he was doing, and so was Romy Schneider. Everybody they were very, very into it. In Lady Frankenstein, it was more of a, I don't know, it was a little bit looser, let's say, the whole idea and the way they were working. Not as focused all the time, although they were professional and they did a good job. It wasn't the same thing. They didn't have the feeling as you had with other films that I've been involved in, that something important was happening. It was something that they were doing because it was fun or whatever. It was, as I say, Andy Warhol and the things that Warhol was doing in those days were interesting, I suppose. Remember that I wrote and produced at a very young age Just a Gigolo with David Bowie, which is now being re-released. And
Wow.
and we had everybody on that film. And Bowie was on it, Hemmings was on it. And then I went and got Marlene Dietrich, which people thought was impossible. I went on my own and got Marlene Dietrich to be in the film. It was her last film and the first time she had been in a movie in 25 years, or sang in a movie in 25 years. Mm-hmm. So those were things that were more important. And in all of that happened to me later, I sort of forgot about Lady Frankenstein. And when I look at my IMDb, I sometimes wonder why some things are there and they stick to my IMDb. I can't get rid of them. Yeah. And others don't come because they forget about it. I think IMDb is a little mafia.
Yeah, I know, because I'm always finding credits on people's IMDb that they end up telling me that they weren't a part of, and they can't get rid of it. I don't get that at all. But yeah, the guy who played the monster, Riccardo Pizzuti, was he intimidating in person?
No.
He's
a stuntman.
Right.
And when you sit there and watch them put the makeup on them, you're not intimidated because you realize what's happening. I'm not intimidated by monsters. I'm intimidated by idiots. But a monster like that, he wasn't. He had these shoes on that made him 10 to 15 centimeters taller. And I guess he was intimidating in the film. But that's baby photography or lighting. But Riccardo, I worked with Riccardo later in a Western, because I did 3 or 4 Westerns after that just for fun as an actor. Mm-hmm. And he would appear all the time because he was basically an important stuntman in Italy, in Rome. And when I did one thing with Franco Nero, I did 2 movies with him. But I worked on one with Woody Strode, and Riccardo was in that as well. And they basically they're stuntmen. Basically, they put makeup on and they play certain things. He was he also played a strange character like Frankenstein in a movie I did with Franco Nero after that as an actor. Mm-hmm. But Riccardo wasn't intimidating. He was a lot of fun.
Nice.
It was it's called screenplay, and it's called play generally, because what we're doing is playing. It's very strange and very difficult for people who are inside a film to actually take it as seriously as it should be taken. They take it professionally. You do what you have to do, and you believe it. But you're not scared by your own the figments of the director's imagination. I just did a movie in Budapest a couple of years ago on the life of Edith Stein, and we we did a lot of beautiful things in churches. I had my director of photography or cinematographer was Storaro, who has 3 Oscars, and it was fun to do. But we didn't. We realized what we were doing, but we realized also that it's a profession, it's a job, and the worst thing you can do as a filmmaker is to take all these things that are fictitious and bigger than life seriously. It's we're entertainers. We have to remember that we're basically clowns, and we're involved in something that's more like a circus than anything else. And I know there are a lot of actors, especially at the Oscars and other things, who really, really think they're Einsteins, and that they're doing things that are wonderful. But there is no Nobel Prize in cinematography, and it's not because cinematography is not worth it, but we must always remember that basically what we're doing is a circus, and we are performing like circus entertainers, and we put on the grease paint and all that stuff. But we do that. Marlene Dietrich said that to me when I got her for Gigolo. We had dinner together at her place, and she said she used to go to work, do what the director told her, and then take off her makeup, go home and cook. It wasn't something that revolutionized your life. Yeah. It did if you started to take yourself seriously, then you're basically dead in this business, because people don't like you taking yourself seriously in anything that you do. I'm also a medical doctor. There you have to sort of take yourself seriously. But in film, you must see it for what it is. I have a film coming out on Friday at the Vienna Jewish Film Festival, and it's going to be screened there, and we have to talk about it later. Mm-hmm. But it's, again, what are we trying to say in the film? How can it be good for people? How can it be therapeutic, if possible? What can people learn from what you're saying? But in the end, it's not the unified field theory. It's not quantum physics. It's not quantum entanglement. It's not what Stephen Hawking was doing with the arrow of time. Those are things that really revolutionize the soul and society. These things are entertainment, and entertainment is wonderful if you don't take yourself seriously. I don't think guys like Danny Kaye or others really took themselves that seriously. That's why they were so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Why did you go by Johnny Lawfrey in those days?
I didn't go by anything. They put in whatever name they wanted to. And my name is Gianni Loffredo, which is Italian. Mm-hmm. And when they went to put the credits in the film, nobody asked me what my name was really, how you spell it. They just stuck in anything they wanted to. And if Johnny Lawfrey worked, then fine. If John Loffredo, I had 5 or 6 different names. I didn't tell them to put those in. The only name I have besides John Luigi Loffredo is Joshua Sinclair, because it's my family name, my mother's name. But mm-hmm. All the others, I don't know how they got in there. And I keep telling IMDb to get rid of them because I didn't want them in there. But I can't get rid of them because they're actually in the film.
Right.
So either I go back in time with a time machine and tell the producers, what are you doing with my name? Why do you put that in? Why don't you ask me how I want to appear? But they never did, especially in Italy.
Wow.
So I didn't go by it. They stuck me. They used that name. I didn't.
Okay, the question should have been, why were you credited as Johnny Lawfrey? Sorry about that.
I have no idea. Yeah. I know why, because the producers put that in, but I had nothing to do with it.
Going back to Just a Gigolo, I didn't realize that you had written that. You had David Bowie in there. What was David Bowie like?
David was a good entertainer. He was also bigger than life. He kept reinventing himself, which kept him current. And I spent like 2.5, 3 months with him. It was good with David Hemmings and David Bowie working together. They're both Londoners. Bowie was, look, I directed a lot of people like Grace Jones and really incredible entertainers. David was very remote. He lived in a world of nihilism, and that's why he called it rock nihilism, because he was basically nihilistic. He was not. Charlie Watts just said a few weeks before dying, he said that David Bowie was not a genius. He was a good composer, but not a genius. David was not a genius. Everybody thinks he's great, and when I see his picture, I remember that he was in Gigolo, and that we spent time together, and that he was good in Gigolo, because in Gigolo he didn't have to do much except be David Bowie, which means passive. He was always a man who fell to earth. But and when he says that, when he said that Gigolo was his 32 Elvis Presley movies in one, I guess it was derogatory. And what's been re-released now is good. And when he first came out of Gigolo, David said that he really liked the film. And then he changed his mind because he fought with David Hemmings. He was emotional. My question to David was, if these are your 32 Elvis Presley movies, why are you putting down Elvis Presley? He did a good job in a lot of his films. Maybe even a better job than you did in this film. So they didn't push these movies on Elvis Presley, even though his famous Colonel pushed him almost to his death. But Elvis Presley. But I think David was a good entertainer. I didn't particularly like all of his music. I sort of liked Heroes, but I didn't particularly like his music. He wasn't on the level of people like Elton John and others. And when I met Elton together with Grace, that was really an emotional thing for me, because I had followed his music as a kid. When I met David Bowie in Berlin, I was not taken back and said, "Oh my God, it's David Bowie." I didn't care about that much, because he never made that impression on me. He was always like somebody who was bigger than life, as I say, somebody who was trying to prove something. I don't exactly know what David was trying to prove to himself and the world. That he could be different, or that he couldn't follow one line. He was a good music composer. He did a piece for Gigolo, which was very good. And of course, he looked great, and that helped him. If David Bowie looked like Quasimodo, I wouldn't have gone as far, because his looks were 50% of what was happening to David. I mean, I had the privilege of working with Stevie Wonder when we were doing Shaka 2, and I spent time in his hotel discussing with him. That's a genius. That is a genius. But David can kiss the ground he walks on, because he never had that. He was just strange, talking about clowns. He was the Emmett Kelly of pop music. And I guess he put on his makeup, except Emmett Kelly was consistent in what he was trying to do with his public. I never understood what David was doing. And I don't know if he was doing it for himself or for others. Joe Losey once said to me that there's a difference in entertainment between making love and masturbating. I think David Bowie was masturbating more than making love with the public. And that sort of turned me off, because I want him to give something to the public and not so much use the public to as a reflection of what he liked to look like or be like, you know?
Right. Neil Young is like that as well.
Yeah. I don't know Neil Young. I mean, I know of Neil Young, but I don't know him.
Right. What's the genesis behind Shaka Zulu?
What? The genesis?
The genesis.
I was in South Africa doing working at Baragwana Hospital in Soweto, and I had written some things then already as a filmmaker. Again, I didn't really want to be a filmmaker, and they got in touch with me and asked me if I wanted to write Shaka Zulu. I didn't know much about Shaka Zulu. This was the 80s, and I read up on him, and then I said, yeah, I'd love to do it, because for me it was Shakespearean. And that started a whole adventure in my life, a journey into apartheid and into my work against apartheid and all sorts of things. And now we're doing a remake on Shaka. So let's see where this one goes.
Yeah, this is going to be the third one, I believe, right?
Yeah, the second one was not... the Citadel that I did was with Karen Allen was not really a remake. It was sort of an interesting reaction to the end of apartheid. I wanted to ask the question: is it possible for people who have been persecuted to forgive, or do they have to get even? And so I said, what if you take the biggest or the most powerful African warrior and chieftain and put him on a slave ship so he can see how his own people are treated? Would he have the wherewithal to forgive after that? Because that for me was the central concept of truth and reconciliation. Can you forgive? Because if you can't forgive, the whole thing doesn't work.
Right. When the original aired, wasn't it like the biggest miniseries that TV had had up to that point?
It still is. It's still one of the biggest syndicated series in America and in the world. It's been seen by over 3 billion people. I mean, everywhere I go, when I mention Shaka Zulu, it's a whole thing. I was in the Hotel Beau Rivage in Geneva when I showed one of my films at the United Nations, and the owner of the hotel. This is a very important hotel. I went there because Elizabeth of Austria was murdered in Geneva, and that's where she was staying at the time. So I wanted to see her room because I wanted to do a movie on her, and. And the manager of the hotel came to me and he said, I want to shake your hand. And I thought he meant for, I don't know, another film. I've done so many of them, like Lily Marlene, for instance, which was very big there. But he said for Shaka Zulu in Switzerland. So that was interesting. And it's followed me throughout my life. And now it's very interesting that with Black Lives Matter, They say, how is it possible for a white man to have written a thing like that? And again, we get into the racism and reverse racism, and the whole thing is a bit out of control for me.
Yeah, it's just insane. But I think things are going to start getting better after, the whole George Floyd matter.
Yeah, if people could just forget the color and start to see one another as human beings and judge people, as Martin Luther King said, by their character and not their color, then it would be maybe therapeutic. So maybe if this is really a stage we're passing through to get to something better, it's all right.
It certainly is. I saw Judgment in Berlin years ago, and I really liked it. Where did the inspiration for that movie come from?
The book.
The book. Yeah.
Yeah. The book written by Herbert Stern, Judgment in Berlin. I was approached. Let's see when. I was approached by not by Martin Sheen, sometime in London, by his partner, Bill Greenblatt, and they wanted to know if I wanted to be involved in doing Judgment in Berlin. I sort of liked it. Sean was in it. Sean Penn was going to be in it, and I loved Leo Penn. He was wonderful. So I raised the money for that, and then we shot it in Berlin, and it was interesting to make that film because of the people involved and because Sean was wonderful to work with, Sean Penn, and his father was wonderful to work with, and Martin Sheen was less wonderful, but still Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen is on a mission all the time. You always have the feeling that he's going to try to convert you when you're already converted.
Yeah.
So I said, Martin, listen, I'm already against atomic war, and I'm already a Catholic. Leave me alone, right? You don't have to make me anything I'm not. But he always, he would come into makeup and say, God bless everybody in this room. And I said, Martin, all you have to do is say hallelujah, because that's what hallelujah means. Or just and then the short version of hallelujah is hello. Just say hello. But look, everybody's living life the way they can, the way they see best. And you can't really judge people that much. You just have to appreciate the fact that we as human beings are very complex creatures and have a bit more compassion for one another.
I totally agree. Now, the new movie you mentioned before, that premieres Friday, what can you tell me about it?
That is a director's cut of the movie I did with Patrick Swayze that I wrote and directed. It's about Philip Alsman, who is a Jewish photographer, very famous for his photographs of Marilyn Monroe, and the photographs that he did, the jump photos. And it's a story of his trial in 1928 in Innsbruck. He was probably the first Jew to be put on trial for being a Jew. And Patrick plays his attorney, and it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful movie. Patrick Swayze is the most wonderful human being I have ever met, and I miss him dearly, and I pray for him every day. He was amazing, amazing, amazing. He was such a good man, profoundly good. Didn't take himself seriously. Very professional, very much the star in the eyes of others, but in his own eyes, he was just doing a job. But above all, he cared for people. And it's rare in this business.
What's the movie called?
Philip Alsman.
Okay. And it was shot just before he passed?
Yeah, it's the last thing he did. Well, last thing he starred in. He did one other movie after that, and then he did a television series that his wife directed, partially. But it was the last film that he starred in, unfortunately. And I wanted to recut it because there's some things that were not said before that I wanted to highlight.
That's good that you did that. I'm sure people who saw it the first time around will be pleased that they get to see the director's cut now.
I hope so. I don't know. You never know what people are going to say.
Do you have any other upcoming projects?
Yeah, I'm writing now a television series called Gaia, which is about a parallel planet to planet Earth, in which things work out right, in which ecology is respected, in which all the things we'd like to happen here on Earth happen there. And that planet has got in touch with us to try to save us from ourselves. I guess it's science fiction. I really don't know what it is, because it's a little bit of everything in there. And I've already written 6, and I'm working on the 7th episode. And we'll see where it goes. I don't know.
Is there any books you're working on as well?
I've got books that I've written recently that I'd like to publish, but that all depends a little bit on an agent, and I never seem to have much luck with agents who represent me, because I'm a little bit perplexing for these agents.
Yeah, I get that. Well, Joshua, once again, I want to thank you for coming on today. This was fantastic.
Good, thank you.
I hope that movie does very well for you, and that the rest of your writing projects will come to fruition. Stay safe and have yourself a great night over there.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Goodbye. Well, there you have it. Joshua Sinclair. Ain't he a cool dude? Nice guy, great stories, has a real passion for what he does, I can see. Welp, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.